Hello, today I'd like to walk you through how to create typewell profiles in Ogres R3. First thing you need to do is select the assets with historical data or forecast data that you would like to use. Simply highlight them on your asset tree. Then you would like to click the Launch Create Typewell Profiles button. Here you'll select the data source to use to create your profiles. In this instance, we're going to create a typewell profile for the oil stream. This second drop-down is where you would select if you would like to include any forecast data for those assets. You may create your profiles on just historical or historical and forecast data. Then you click Create. In the typewell profile creation window that opens, you've got four main areas: the menu and icon bar, the asset list, the statistics list, and your chart window. Your chart window includes your main rate versus time chart and the P10 to P90 ratio chart, which we also call the QC chart. In the file menu, the user can create a new profile, open an existing profile, save the current profile, save the data to Excel that I'll show you in a moment, or close the profile creation window. From the Edit menu, you can launch the Decline Graphic tool where you'll create the fits, switch to using the empirical distribution method to calculate your P10, P50, and P90. Otherwise, a normal distribution will be used. And it's also where the culling options are located. The View menu is where you can customize the view of the profile creation window. You may hide or show the QC chart by selecting the first option. You can hide or show the well count on your rate versus time chart, that is the light blue shaded area. Or you can toggle between log axis on the y-axis. Next, the normalized production start date on the icon bar is the date that all of the historical and or forecast data is normalized back to on your rate versus time chart. You may change that date by clicking this calendar. The next drop-down is the interval of your production data. You may switch between daily, monthly, or yearly. The next is the units of your production data, which various options are available to switch between. Your asset list is a list of all the assets that are in your data set that you selected in Asset Manager. Using the checkboxes on the left-hand side, you may remove entire assets from your data set, or you may use this check mark icon to quickly turn off or turn on all of the assets. Also in the heading is a count of the number of assets in your list. If you uncheck a few assets, the count shows how many active assets you have. Let's add them all back in. Also, if you go over to the rate versus time chart and hover over any individual curve, the asset will highlight on the left-hand side. Down in your statistics list, you may add a statistic curve to your rate versus time plot. I've just added the mean curve for all of the data on the rate versus time plot. You may add multiple curves to view at any time. Each has their own color as identified next to their name. You may also quickly turn off or on all of the curves. Once we've actually created fits in the next step, a check mark for any curve, any statistic that was fit will show here on the right-hand side. For the P10 to P90 ratio chart or QC chart, it's an interactive chart with the data in the rate versus time chart, so as any data is culled from your top chart, it will be reflected in your QC chart below. How you can use this chart is to follow the rules of thumb that if the value on the chart is less than 5, like these values here, that's a low risk profile. It's a good profile fit. If the value is between 5 to 10, that's just a general ratio you can target on your type-wall profile. And if it's greater than 10, you may need to regroup your assets. You'll notice down on the bottom of your chart area, we're on the Graph tab. You can click this Data tab and see a list of all of the data points in table format for your rate versus time chart. If you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see the points for the statistics. Those are lined out because they're inactive on your current chart. If I were to add the mean statistic to the chart, notice now they don't have a line going through them. They're now active on the chart. If any data was culled from one of these other assets, they also would be lined out and inactive. Now let's go back to our charts, cull out some data, and get ready to generate some fits. I'm going to use the Cull Block Remove tool to remove this data from the right-hand side of the chart where we don't have that many wells with data, and I'm unsure how much I can trust that data. Now, I feel my data set is okay, so I'm going to click the Create Fits icon. I could also access it from the Edit menu. So now I'm launching the graphic tool. First thing you have to do is open up a template or create a new one. I'll show you how to create a new one. We're going to use a rate versus time. I'm only looking at oil, and then click Finish. Let me expand this so we can see it a little better. The two things that opened, we have the graphics window and a decline segment status window. The first thing we want to do is set up our preferences for our declines. This will impact any of your automatically generated curves or the curves you generate, how they cut off or transition from hyperbolic to exponential. So let me select the oil phase. I'm going to change this hyperbolic threshold to 5%. I'm going to assume we're not that worried with anything after 30 years. And this abandonment rate of 1. And I'm going to click Apply and click OK. Now I'm going to choose a statistic to fit. You see that we're on maximum here. If we look over to the left where our asset tree would be in Asset Manager, we have a plus button we can expand, and here are all of the statistics that we can fit for our data set. I'm going to start with the mean. Here we can also cull data as needed by culling by block, between horizontal lines, vertical lines, or individual points. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can cull off a couple of these points down here on the bottom, just for visual sake. Now, I'm going to choose a curve type. Let's call this hyperbolic, and I'm going to do an auto fit. Let me drag this out of the way so we can see, and if we'd like to shift the data set to the left so that we can see more, and click the scale button up here and move that over so we can see a little bit more of our forecast. I think this fit looks okay, so I'm going to click the Apply Changes button. You may do any editing of the forecast curve that you would like. First, make sure that you're on the Select tool so that you're editing the curve and not your data points. You may click it and drag it. You may change the shape of it by using the black dot. See what I'm doing here. Most of the options that are available to you in the graphics tool for Asset Manager are available to you here. Since I did do some changes, I'm going to go ahead and click Apply Changes again and quickly add just a few more auto fits here. Hyperbolic, auto fit, apply changes. We'll take the P90, set hyperbolic, auto fit. Even without culling data, that one probably could have used it, but that's okay. Auto fit, apply changes. So now that I have a few of the statistics fit with what I think are the type well profiles I would like to use, I can exit out of this window. You can save the template file for use your next time. I'm going to click no. Now you can see that down here in your statistics pane, you can see the check marks on the mean, the P10, and the P90 where we created fits. You want to save this file. I'm going to save it to my desktop so that I can find it, and I'm going to call this sample type well profiles field A, oil. I'm naming it this way so that in the future I know where the wells were located that I was using as my base, and I also know what stream I was worrying about. You click Save. I'm done in this window and I can return to Asset Manager. Now that we're back in Asset Manager, I'm going to show you how to apply these type well profiles that we created to other assets. In this study, I have two wells called New Well 1 and New Well 2. I will select them on the asset tree. First, let me show you that they do not have a production forecast associated with them. Now I will select them, and I may either right-click, go to Utility, and apply type well profiles, or use this icon at the top of the Asset Manager window. I'm going to click the icon, and now a browser window opens and lets me look for any type well profile files that I've created. Here's the one we just created. Now I'm allowed to choose which of the curve fits that I created that I would like to apply to these wells. I'm going to pick the mean. It's finished. I click OK. Now if I click on one of these assets and go to the Production Forecast tab, we can see that the oil forecast has been filled in. This is a hyperbolic fit until it hits roughly my 5% decline cutoff, and then it switched to exponential. That's why we set up those preferences. The same forecast will exist now on the New Well 2. One difference though is that I actually have two different start dates on my forecast because that's what I had in my assets already on their asset options forms. Now if you'd like to add the type well profile curve fits to a well that has historical data like this well, same thing, just select it on the asset tree, click the Apply Type Well Profiles, open your file, select your fit, and hit the Apply button. Now if I go to my production forecast form, I'll have this same curve populated on my oil stream, but if you notice, my initial rate is lower here than it is on my New Well 1. That's because the type well profile application process considers how many months of historical data your asset has, and it will count up the number of months of historical points and slide down your profile that many months and pick up the curve fit there, the forecast there. So that way, if you have a 30-year forecast on your curve and you have 3 years of historical data, you will get a forecast that starts 3 years into your type curve and forecasts for 27 years. Now let me show you another way to apply type well profiles, but also to generate a well schedule for a development program using our well scheduler. Click on a parent that has a template asset underneath it that you would like to use. This template asset may not have a forecast in it, may not have any historical data in it, but has the pricing and cost data already populated in it that you would like to use. Let's click on our OPEX here. So click on the parent that has the asset that you would like to use as your template. Right click on New and Well Schedule. Now, from the left-hand side, there's a drop-down. You can select your template asset. You can pick your start date. Let's go with, we'll make it easy on ourselves. Then select how many months delay from when you start your development to when your production would start. I'm going to select 2 months. I want to develop 20 wells. I want to do that on an interval increment of every 2 months. I want to complete 2 wells. Now this last box is where we can select the type well profile we would like to apply to all of these wells. It works the same as the other window. You open your file, you select your type well profile to use, and click the Create button. It may not look like anything's happened, but if you look at your asset tree on your template well, it now has a plus sign. Expand that, and you can see that you have, if we highlight them, you have 20 new wells, and let's click on one. The production forecast has been populated with our type well profile forecast. And let's check our start dates. We started in January with our development, but we asked for a 2-month production start date delay. So our first well starts in March. Our second well also starts in March because every 2 months we wanted to complete 2 wells. So now we skip 2 months and we have 2 wells in May. And so on down our 20 wells. And that's a fast way to apply type well profiles to a development. A final way to apply type well profiles to assets is to use our query tool. First, create a query that will pull in the assets that you'd like to apply the type well profile to. Here's the New Query button. Let's name our new query Apply Type well Profiles. Add a step. We're going to be searching for the EXP field. Click OK. Now, for the assets I'd like to apply to, I'm going to search by field. I'd like fields where the value of the field data item contains EXP. Set. And my top part of my query window here actually shows which assets I'll be applying my type well profiles to. Now I can add an action item. Here's the type well profile application icon. Click the setup. This browse button will take me to search for my file where I saved my type well profiles. I can now choose which curve fit I would like to use, set, and save. Now to run my query, make sure I'm at the top of my asset tree, hit the Run Query button. It's finished. I say OK. I can check over here in my status window that it actually applied the type well profile P10 to the 2 wells I was hoping for. Click OK. Now if I go up and check here on EXP well 1, which is located in field EXP field, check my production forecast tab, and here is my type well profile from my file, the P10 curve, and same curve populated on my EXP well 2.